Hey, I'm back. Sorry about that for everyone that is going to be watching live. Like we did last time, we had a technical error when I tried to add Angela in. If you are watching this later on, not live, or on YouTube later, you won't have seen any of that. I am Brian. I'm here for continue our discussion on the Harry Potter book and film series. We are on Deathly Hallows Part 1, and at some point I'm going to try to add Angela in here again and hope it does not error me completely, because last time oh good, it popped up correct. This one is going to work. We'll see. We are adding her
Okay,
on.
it
Yay!
worked.
Oh, jeez.
That was so weird. I'm sorry, you guys. I don't know. That was so strange.
Well, when I click to add you, it pops up sideways, and I
Oh.
shouldn't have hit add. I should have known something was wrong. And then as soon as I went to add you, it flipped me upside down. And if you had gotten on, we both would have been sideways, which is what happened last time too.
I just turn your world upside down.
Yeah. Facebook must have
Not funny.
changed something again and messed with this. So
Messed
hopefully
everything
hopefully
up.
everybody hopefully everybody got back on here. And
Yeah, we're
like I said, if you're
back on
watching
track.
this later or on YouTube, you won't have known anything went wrong the first time. So
Yeah, exactly.
yay.
Yeah. So hi everyone. Sorry that we couldn't do it yesterday. I wasn't feeling good. I got my son's stomach bug, and now my daughter has a fever today. It's like a mess.
Jeez.
I know. Hashtag life with toddlers.
Yeah.
But yes, we're here today. And like Brian said, we're doing Deathly Hallows Part 1 of the Harry Potter films. So,
which is roughly 2/3 of the book.
Yes.
I looked on my Kindle at pretty much where the film stops, and it's exactly like 66% of the way through. So they only kept the last two like big show scenes kind of for the last movie. So
yeah, they like 86 most of the forest scenes.
Which is a good thing, but yeah, we will get to that. Oh, I don't have my summary open. Oh no.
Let's go through some of the comments while you do that. Hello, John. Nice look of frustration. He said, hello to Kate. Hello,
Facebook,
George.
Yeah.
Hi, Dee. Yes, I'm feeling much better. It was a rough over 24 hours. It was not good. Hi, Tracy. She's my jiu-jitsu friend. And hello, Harley. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Yes, so in case you haven't joined us before, what we do is we do a summary of the film, not the book, but they're close enough. And then we kind of do some talking points. And we'd love for you to engage in the comment section, kind of enter your thoughts as we talk about them. We do go back and talk through the comments as we go through them. And this is uploaded to YouTube after the fact. So please if you're watching on YouTube, please leave your comments below as well, because we do go back in on YouTube and respond to those. Okay.
Yeah, I broke out my Deathly Hallows t-shirt. One of two Harry Potter t-shirts I own.
Wait, now you got to stand up so we can see it. You can't just be like Deathly Hallows and then we see half of it.
I thought you could see it from there.
Oh, I like that. No, I just bought a new Harry Potter shirt that I will wear for the last video.
Yeah, I was going to save this for the last one, but then I realized this is the film where they explain what the symbol means, so I figured it was probably appropriate.
Yes. I think this was a good choice.
Speaking of that, let's go through Deathly Hallows Part 1.
Yes.
It starts with the Minister of Magic, Rufus Scrimgeour, who I'm not sure, I just don't think they actually name him in the book. We just know him as a ministry official.
Yes.
He's addressing the wizarding media, stating that the ministry remains strong, even as Lord Voldemort gains power. Not so fast on that, Rufus. Death Eaters are committing mass killings of muggles and infiltrating the ministry, of course. At Malfoy Manor, Severus Snape informs Lord Voldemort and the Death Eaters of Harry's impending departure from Privet Drive. You may remember, since Harry is turning 17 this summer, his mother's protection will break. Voldemort commandeers Lucius Malfoy's wand, since Voldemort's own wand cannot be used against Harry because they share the same core. We learned that in Goblet of Fire.
Mm-hmm. The Order of the Phoenix escort Harry away from Privet Drive using Polyjuice Potion to create decoy Harrys, which is a very funny scene. During their flight, they are ambushed by Death Eaters who kill Mad-Eye Moody and Hedwig, who's Harry's owl, and injure George Weasley. Arriving at the Burrow, Scrimgeour arrives with Albus Dumbledore's will. Ron receives Dumbledore's Deluminator, Hermione receives a copy of the Tales of Beedle the Bard, and Harry receives the first golden snitch that he caught in a Quidditch match. Scrimgeour reveals that Harry was also given the Sword of Godric Gryffindor, which he uses in the second film. The Minister tells Harry that the sword was not Dumbledore's to... Why do you have to use bequeath? Such a... Oh, I was worried I wouldn't say
think that
right.
was probably from... I copy a lot of these from Wikipedia and just kind of edit them. I probably just didn't do that.
I was worried I would say that wrong. So he can't have the sword.
Guys,
it wasn't his to give.
Hug your owls tight. You never know what's going to happen to them.
Oh, that's cute.
The Death Eaters kill Scrimgeour and replace him with Pious Thickness. This is another name that I'm not exactly sure on.
That was good.
Who is under the Imperious Curse, and they attack during Bill Weasley and Fleur Delacour's wedding. Harry, Hermione, and Ron disapparate to London, but are attacked in a diner by Death Eaters. How they found them is not explained in the movie, by the way. I'll talk more on that later. The trio seek refuge at 12 Grimmauld Place, Sirius's old house. They discover that the RAB from the fake Horcrux locket found in the cave in the last movie is actually Regulus, Sirius's little brother. Creature of the Black's house elf tells them that Mundungus Fletcher broke in and stole many items from the house, including the real locket. That is, of course, a Horcrux with part of Voldemort's soul in it. Creature and Dobby apprehend Fletcher, who reveals that the locket is now in the possession of Dolores Umbridge. Using Polyjuice Potion, the trio infiltrate the Ministry, where Umbridge still works somehow, and find the locket around Umbridge's neck. Harry stuns Umbridge, and Hermione retrieves the locket. The trio escape their pursuers by apparating into the woods.
I feel like a lot of this film is confusing if you haven't read the book, but we will move on.
Yeah, okay. I will talk about that a little bit, because I had that experience with my family.
Yes.
Yeah.
After unsuccessful attempts to destroy the Horcrux, the trio takes turns wearing the necklace to dilute its power. Harry sees a vision of Voldemort interrogating and killing the wand maker Grigorovich, who claims a teenage boy stole something from his shop. While Ron is wearing the locket, he's overcome by negative feelings and argues with Harry before abandoning him and Hermione. Hermione deduces that the Sword of Gryffindor can destroy Horcruxes and decides with Harry to go to Godric's Hollow, which is where Harry was born.
Also where the Dumbledores lived and where Godric Gryffindor lived, which is who it's named after, of course.
A lot of stuff happened there.
Yeah, turns out that none of which Harry knew until now, because he's not a curious person. They visit Harry's parents' graves at Godric's Hollow and the house where they were murdered. They meet Bathilda Bagshot, the author of the History of Magic book that they use at school, by the way, who they believe may have the sword. Bathilda lets Harry and Hermione into her house, but it turns out she's actually Voldemort's snake Nagini, controlling Bathilda's reanimated corpse from inside of her. Yikes, that is gruesome.
Yeah, that's pretty much as like creepy as it gets.
It is pretty. The movie isn't as graphic as the book gets, which for obvious reasons. True. But even still, it's pretty terrifying. Hermione and Harry escape into the Forest of Dean, but Hermione accidentally breaks Harry's wand while fighting Nagini. Hermione identifies the mysterious thief in Harry's vision as Gellert Grindelwald himself.
Harry sees a Patronus in the form of a doe, which leads him to a frozen pond. Gryffindor's Gryffindor's sword lies beneath the pond's ice, which Harry breaks and jumps in to retrieve the sword. The locket, which he never takes off before jumping in, strangles him, but Ron arrives and rescues Harry. Harry uses Parseltongue to open the locket, and Ron destroys the Horcrux with the sword. Hermione and Ron reconcile, kind of, and the trio decides to visit Xenophilius Lovegood to learn more about a symbol drawn in the book Dumbledore left Hermione. Lovegood explains to them what the symbol represents, which is the Deathly Hallows. And, sorry, I got distracted. Okay. Which is three magical Which is three magical objects that can make a wizard master of death. And those three magical objects are the Elder Wand, the Resurrection Stone, and the Cloak of Invisibility. Yeah, thank you, Brian. Perfect idea to wear the shirt. He reveals that Luna has been kidnapped before summoning the Death Eaters, intending to hand Harry over in exchange for her. Harry, Ron, and Hermione disapparate as Lovegood's house is destroyed.
Snatchers find them in the woods somehow and take them to Malfoy Manor. Bellatrix Lestrange imprisons Harry and Ron in the cellar with Luna, Ollivander, Griphook the Goblin. We're probably going to spend a pretty good amount of time on this whole section that I'm reading now, by the way, because this is the part where it gets real confusing.
Yes.
Yeah, Bellatrix tortures Hermione for information on how they got the Sword of Gryffindor, which Bellatrix believes was in her vault at Gringotts. Harry requests help communicating with a piece of broken mirror that I guess is mysteriously in his possession. Dobby apparates into the cellar to save them. Harry and Ron rush to save Hermione and a battle ensues. Bellatrix throws her knife at them as Dobby grabs everyone and disapparates. They arrive at Shell Cottage, which is where Bill and Fleur live, and find that Bellatrix's knife has fatally wounded Dobby. R.I.P. Dobby. That one actually hurt a lot. The movie ends with Voldemort breaking into Dumbledore's tomb and stealing his wand, which we find out is the legendary Elder Wand itself.
Okay.
And that is the Deathly Hallows Part 1. Yeah, as you were saying, this one, I've said this, I think, in all the videos, but my kids have been watching all the Harry Potters, and we finally kind of caught up with where they are. So I actually watched this one for this video with them. And my wife, who has seen all of the movies before, but not in years, and has never read the books. And I had more questions from the three of them about this movie than I think all of the others combined. Some of it is that things are just not explained in this movie, and some of it is that they are explained in like throwaway lines or lines in Harry's vision that are just kind of shaky and in passing, and you don't know who is talking to who, and it gets real confusing. I actually kind of like this movie more so than some of the others, but the last half hour or so are nonsense if you haven't read the book, I think.
Well, they had 2 movies to explain this book. And so I feel like they could have done a better job. But I quick want to acknowledge the comments before we move on. Heather said, "Hi guys, love Potter and touring plans." Well, then this is a great stream for you. So thank you for joining, Heather. Dee said, "Hedwig's death killed me." I remember reading this part. And again, with most of the deaths, I would say it happened so fast that I had to reread and think, oh no. No,
I did the exact same thing. I had to flip back. I kind of caught it as I was going by, and I was like, "Whoa, what happened there?"
Yeah, it was very sad. And Danya hit the nail on the head as far as Harry's not the smartest. Rarely puts 2 and 2 together. I feel like all of this should have happened to Hermione because she figures everything out. She only needs Harry there because Harry's like the body that this happened to. But it had this had she been in Harry's shoes, she could have just done this herself. She basically figures this all out herself.
We've said this before, but without Hermione, Harry would have been dead at 11, probably.
Yeah, Ron
he has no shot without him. Yeah,
I know. She does it all, and then Harry's just like the thread between Voldemort and Hermione, basically.
I've been listening. There's a podcast put out by The Ringer, which is a sports and pop culture one, and it's a podcast called Binge Mode that it kind of started as a Game of Thrones rewatch binge thing, and they've been doing the Harry Potter. They're up to Goblet of Fire right now, and it's a little blue, so I wouldn't recommend it with little kids. But they do 5 podcasts on each book and movie, and so they go real deep, and it's really well done, and it's pretty funny. But one of their running through lines is just that Harry has no curiosity whatsoever. That every time they go to the Quidditch World Cup and they're like, "Wait, there are other wizarding schools?" And Hermione's like, "Yeah, of course there are, you idiot!" Why would Harry never have thought to even ask in 14 years?
No,
3 years since he knew he was a wizard. Yeah.
They both come from Muggle families, and Hermione's kind of like me. It's like you want to learn about everything because it's this whole world you never knew about. And Harry's like, "Oh, look, magic! This is really cool."
I know. Yeah,
that's it.
I mean, even Quidditch, like it never dawns on him that there are like national Quidditch teams, which is Quidditch is like the one thing he's most into. It just seems ridiculous that he just
I
has
know,
no interest in anything that's going on.
little
And Hermione's just like, yeah, of
closed-minded.
course, I read about that. What are you talking
Yeah,
about?
I know. He just like doesn't look beyond his nose sometimes. And yes,
But
Brian,
talking about, oh, sorry, go.
oh, I was just acknowledging what Danya said. Your visuals during my part was very,
Mhm.
very good. I always feel like I
I
have
have
to
my
look at
I
the
have my
camera
Hedwig
while
mug
I
out too.
read. Yeah, that was
Hmm.
very good. Because otherwise I would have failed. I feel like I have to look at you guys while I read, which is really a bad idea because I lose my spot. But I want to make sure that I'm giving you attention. But so Brian, you really won that with the visuals. And then Harley
I
and Danya and Dee with Dobby dying. I'm with you. That was
loves
very
Dobby, a free
sad.
elf. Yeah, it's funny because
It
the
was
three big
sad.
deaths in this section of the book, and we're not done with rough deaths in this book, but the three big ones in this section of the book were Mad Eye Moody, Hedwig, and Dobby. And I find it funny that like most of the characters that aren't Harry take Mad Eye's death the worst, which I understand for like the older ones that have
Mm-hmm.
worked with him and stuff. But as far as we know, and Harry and Hermione and Ron know, they've known Mad Eye mostly as a Death Eater in disguise.
Mm-hmm.
So we
Yeah.
don't really know Mad Eye Moody that well, other than by reputation, and half of his reputation is that he's a crazy person who's super
Right.
paranoid about dark wizards for good reason, it turns out. But so when he died, it was kind of like reading that. I was kind of like, oh, well, that sucks. He's pretty useful. Um,
And
but
you
yeah,
knew him a
like,
little
but
better in the books
a little bit,
throughout.
but not
A
not a
little bit.
lot. I mean, it's really
Mm-mm.
only Order of the Phoenix. He's kind of around a little bit, but that's about it.
Yeah.
But Hedwig is literally the first friend that Harry kind of got that is other than Hagrid, who is different. He's more of a mentor, like, not really a good mentor, Hagrid, but
But kept him connected during the summers too when he was stuck at
yeah,
Privet Drive.
Hedwig was with him the whole time, and
Hmm.
I mean, Hedwig had a personality, especially in the books. He gets mad at Harry when he tries to use other owls, or if he isn't nice enough to him when he brings him something. He'll
Is
never.
Hedwig a
And
boy or a
it's
girl?
I believe it's a girl, but I'm not
Okay.
100%
I
sure on
didn't
that.
know. I didn't know.
Yeah, I know. I keep saying he, but when you ask that, I think it is a she. Um, but it's Harry's lifeline for a lot of the sections that he's not
Yeah.
with his friends. Yeah, Danya confirmed she is a girl, and yeah, her dying was tough, and it was tough for Harry too, actually, in the
Yeah.
books. And the same with Dobby. Dobby has a pretty full arc for a character that we don't regularly see. He is a trailblazer among his species, and it's rough that he dies. And I mean, it's a very heroic death, but it stings. And what bothers me a little bit about that is that the other characters that aren't Harry don't seem to be super bothered by it. Like they're sad, but they're kind of just like, oh, he was a
You,
good friend, and then they just get over it. Like
you know,
just
Dobby was significant, I think, not just because that was Harry's friend, but I think this was Harry's first chance to really grieve all of the deaths that he's seen
yeah,
since
I think
Cedric.
that was some of it. Yeah,
He actually got to finally feel it all. And then Dobby was just such a pure, innocent creature, as was Hedwig. But Harry didn't have time to grieve Hedwig. It was just
no,
like, okay, on to the wedding, on to looking for Horcruxes. But this was the first time he actually got to pause and really feel. So I think that might have had something to do with it too. Well, it just got like
I
really
I do
serious.
love the scenes in the book when Harry digs out Dobby's grave by hand, and a
Yeah.
couple of the other, because in the books, Dean Thomas, who also goes to
Mm-hmm.
he's a Gryffindor in their year, was also in the Malfoy Manor basement, so he gets rescued, and I believe it's him and I think Ron, maybe somebody else, and I can't remember who, come out and help dig the grave with
Mm-hmm.
him and
Mm-hmm.
everything, and it's a very sweet scene in the book. More, it is in the movie too, but it's
But
not.
even more so in the book.
Yeah, it lasts a little longer, as they tend to do in the
Well,
movie.
and you
So,
get
all right,
you get to hear more of Harry's like emotions and how with every dig it feels like it's more and more honoring Dobby. And
Yeah.
Harley was saying that, you know, with Hedwig and Mad Eye's death, it was 2 a.m. and the only thing that kept her from chucking the book down the stairs was the fact that her family was sleeping. And now it gets to that point sometimes you get so frustrated. And George pointed out that Dobby's death was very significant because it was key in to getting Griphook
Yeah,
out, which we will
I saw
definitely
that.
find out in the
I saw that
second
comment,
movie.
and yeah, that's true. And him, yeah, especially him digging the grave is one of the one of the reasons that Griphook helps them in the next step,
Hmm.
which is kind of where we lead off part two. I think I haven't seen part two in a long time, so
This is probably our deepest film discussion out of all of them, which is
yeah.
ironic
Well,
because it's the film I don't really like that much.
you see, this is one of the ones one of my favorite ones. I'll have to go back and think about like how I would rank them. I don't tend to like the films that much. I mean, I watch them, I own them all,
Yeah,
but
so do I.
but I like the books so much more that I tend to just get annoyed sometimes with. But this one I like, but I like that they did slow it down a little bit. But
Hmm.
it's this book is paced very strangely because there are a couple really big action things that happen, and action is always tough on a page to read, but you know, they invade the minute. You know, there's the whole wedding sequence. There's where they invade the ministry. There's like the whole Gringotts Bank thing that will be in the next movie,
Hmm.
and then the battle at
Hmm.
Hogwarts at the end. But in between those in the book, it slows down a lot. And
Yes.
the movie took, I thought, better advantage of that than other movies. I think because they had 2 movies to deal with it, that
Yeah.
they dealt with a lot of that slow time better than other movies have. But yeah, then at the end they just put their foot on and the whole ministry sequence in the movie is way shorter than I thought it would be. Because in the book it takes a little while, where in the movie it's just kind of
There's
rush,
a
rush, rush,
lot
rush,
of
rush, and then
planning.
they're
There's a lot of
out, and then
planning and a
it's
lot of
yeah.
going through with it. Yeah,
I think
I
they could have
agree.
explored some of that a little bit better,
Hmm.
but let's go back. Let's start from the beginning. This whole book is pretty dark, honestly, or this whole section of the
Hmm.
book is pretty dark, um,
Hmm.
which is strange, especially watching it with my 9 and 7 year olds who did not take Hedwig's death particularly well, um, but you know, there were no tears, but there was a lot of, well, they know I know what's going to happen, so there tends to be a lot of questions like, oh, you know, even with Dobby, like at the end, my son turns, he's like, is Dobby going to die? And I'm just like, yep, he's going to die. Like, just get emotionally prepared now
Yeah.
for it. Like,
Prepare
so,
yourselves. All
yeah, but
right, where do you want to
but you
start,
know,
Brian?
we well let's start with the chase when they leave Privet Drive.
Okay.
This wasn't one. This whole sequence, I feel like I had to reread like twice when I first read the book because
So
they're
fast
taking off
paced.
from the yard, and then it's all of a sudden a fight and things are like, and I didn't know what happened, and it was
Yeah.
because again, like a lot of people, you know, you're waiting for this book and you just kind of want to get through it, so like you're
Hmm.
skipping parts here and there and you're kind of speed reading, and then I'm like, wait, what happened? Why are they fighting? Who are they fighting? And I'm like going backwards then, and I'm like, oh, um,
Now, you guys tell us, was this a confusing part for you? Because I felt like, you know, we had had a few books by this point to kind of uh, get to know the names of the Death Eaters. But since
mhm,
you don't know their faces, I still found it
yeah.
very confusing to follow who was who and who was
Yeah, and this
chasing
is,
who.
like I said, with the pacing, this is I think I've grown to really like Deathly Hallows the book, but it's paced strangely, and this is one of those things where it just they're kind of having, it's a lighter moment in a kitchen where they're taking the polyjuice potion and there's the 7 Harrys,
Hmm.
and then all of a sudden it's just chaos, and I think that was the intent. I mean, I'm not saying that, but then it's kind of all over very quick too. And then there's a longer period where they're at the Burrow for a while, and then there's the wedding, and then it goes back into chaos for, now that one I actually
Yeah.
really like because it's a shorter, it's supposed to be shorter, but I think expanding some of these action sequences in the book would have helped a little bit with the way they. Holly just pointed out the "we're identical" line that George and
That was
Fred
funny.
lay out is very funny. Although after this, they won't be identical anymore because George gets his ear cut off
You're cut
by
off.
Snape himself using the Sectum Sempra curse.
And they
So
did
they will no
that.
longer be identical after this. But
They did do the exchange between Dudley and Harry,
they
didn't they?
did. I think, yeah.
I thought that was a
actually,
good
I mean,
addition as well.
this movie, I think, actually followed the book pretty closely. The problem
It
is they cut
it
out
did. It was
some
all
of
just
the
shortened.
they cut out, and what they cut out was some of the exposition parts, which is why
Yeah.
it gets confusing. Um, and then, like, they cut out. Well, in the book, they don't all go to the Burrow, the seven Harrys. They each go to a
Hmm.
different location, which
Yeah.
makes more sense logistically. But I understand why they didn't do that in the movie, because why bother? Because what happens? They all go. Harry and Hagrid go to the Tonkses, Ted and Andromeda
Hmm.
Tonks,
And
who
then they just use
are
a port
uh,
key to get
yeah,
to
who
the
are
Burrow.
Nymphadora Tonks, the Tonks
Hmm.
we've met before. It's her parents, and then yeah, they use a port key to get to the Burrow. So why bother with that? Just go to the Burrow, which is not destroyed anymore. Which again makes it really dumb that they destroyed it in the sixth movie.
But as far as
Um,
the Dudley situation, you
yeah,
miss the transitions of like Harry stepping on teacups as he walks out of his room of cold tea, thinking
yeah,
it's a joke
which
from Dudley,
you
when really
find
he
out
was doing
later
it to
is
be
Dudley actually
nice.
finally appreciating Harry after 17
Yeah.
years. And that it
But
turns out Dudley may actually turn out to be a decent human after all. Who knew?
yeah,
Um,
against all odds, I thought it was really
yes.
sweet. And as George says, the whole world of ear-based humor. I never got sick of it. I thought it was funny the entire time.
Well, it's because
I
he
thought that was
wakes up and
hilarious.
says, I'm feeling holy. And yeah, that's Fred's reply. With the whole world of ear-based humor in front of you, you go with holy.
That's
Um,
what you went with.
but
Um,
but yeah, and then they get to the Burrow. There's the wedding. One thing I couldn't stand with this, although it's not this movie's fault, but since it's the same screenwriter for seven of the eight movies and the same director for the last I think four,
mhm.
it's still their fault that Bill Weasley is not introduced until this moment. Because he just
Yeah.
walks in and is like, "Oh, I got attacked by Griphook, who you've already met. Oh, I'm marrying Fleur Delacour, who you've already met." And it's like, well, why didn't we meet you then? Like this,
Yeah.
it just seemed like it would have been so easy in book 5 or 6 or movie 5 or 6 to just say like, "Oh, hey, look, and Bill's here," and like it just I don't and why
Well,
bother have
considering
him getting attacked like.
there's a whole wedding to do with him. That would have been a good opportunity, at least, maybe in
Yeah,
the
and
fifth
by the
movie or
sixth movie,
something.
by the sixth movie, they knew it was coming. The last book was out by the time the
Yeah.
sixth movie came out. Definitely, maybe even the fifth movie. And if not, you would think J.K. Rowling would have said like, "Hey, you're gonna need him." Like, so it just seems really silly that he walks in and is like, "Look, my face is scarred up, and look, I'm marrying this girl you knew, and you've never
Well,
met
and
me before." Just
wasn't there a scene where Greyback was attacking one of the Gryffindor girls? Or did they save that for the
mm,
next film?
No, I think that's in the last film. Yeah, because
Okay. Was
they
that
don't
in the
do
next one?
any of the
Oh, you're
Hogwarts
right.
fighting
You're
in
right.
the sixth movie. That
I was
isn't
going to
because
say
that's
that'd
where
be
he gets.
easy to do. You're
That's
right.
where Bill. We
That's what I
talked
was
about it
thinking
in our
of.
last video about Bill getting attacked, and so I won't go too much into that. But
It's
I
from
do think
my
it's just
lack of
silly that
food.
they're like, "Oh, we need him, so here he is," and
Yeah.
it's just, "Oh, look,"
Here's the
and
last Weasley brother.
it's Donald Glover, who is the son of or yeah, Donald Gleason, not Donald
Donald
Glover.
Glover.
Donald Glover would have
Donald
been a great
Gleason.
Bill Weasley. A little weird to explain, but
Oh, that'd be
Donald
great.
Glover, where who is the son of or Donald? I did it again. Oh gosh, maybe I need to eat too. The son of Brendan Gleeson,
Do you have the stomach bug?
who played Mad Eye Moody in the films. So is where I was going with
Danya,
that. So
Danya made a good point. He should have been in book 4 when he and Molly come to see Harry at the third task.
yeah,
They could have showed him, in the 5th movie too, with the Order of the Phoenix. There could have been so many opportunities just to blip him in, and they didn't. But
honestly,
whatever.
at this point, I would have taken a line or two in one of those movies saying, "Hey, remember Fleur Delacour? Like she started working at the ministry to work on her English, and her and my brother Bill are dating now." And then just eliminate the whole grayback thing. Don't have him be scarred up. It doesn't come into play later anyway. And I honestly would have taken that, just a line of exposition saying, "Hey, they're dating now," so that when you get to the seventh movie, you're not at least like, "Wait, what? How did this happen? Isn't she French?" And
Brian, tell us how you really feel.
like, and isn't she like 6 years younger than him and just getting out of school? But that's a different.
Yeah, I guess you're right. But that's no different than Lupin and Tonks, I suppose.
It's actually not that bad because she was 17 in Goblet of Fire, so she's 3 years out of school at that point, and we don't.
Love knows no age.
And I don't remember how old Bill Weasley is, but I think he's like late 20s, so it's not like crazy. It's not like he's 35 and dating a 17-year-old or something, but which would have been a little
in the Wizarding World anyway, because they're
they do come of age at 17. So yeah.
I can't get over your Hedwig cup. Did you get that at Harry Potter World?
I didn't actually. My parents and my brother had been there like a year or two before we went a while ago, and they got that for me. This Hedwig we got at the Wizarding World.
By the way, in honor of Brian going to the Wizarding World of Harry Potter in the next few weeks, right? Is that where you're going? No, you're going to Disneyland in the next few weeks.
No, that's in October. I'm going to Orlando for the Mickey's Not So Scary, and I'm gonna pop over. No, that's in September. But I am going to be at Universal for one day in 2 weeks. So that's why the last one of these is going to be on a Wednesday instead of a Thursday, because I leave on Thursday. But I'll be there for Mickey's Not So Scary, which is 2 weeks today. Is the first Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween party, which is crazy. And then the new Aventura Hotel opens at Universal that weekend. So I'm staying there one night. So.
Well, I am putting up, finally, my Harry Potter vlog next Tuesday.
Nice.
So look out for that. I used the Bergen method. I reached out to Derek Bergen, and he gave me a game plan to see both sides of it at both parks. So we'll see how I did with that.
Yeah, and I'm going to have some more detail stuff. That's actually how this started, was because I wanted to rewatch all the movies before I went, with the idea being that I could do detail videos about just some of the little inside jokes and details inside all of these places. So I wanted to rewatch the movies and reread the books anyway. So that was kind of how this whole thing started. But back to this, the wedding. I for whatever reason, I really, really like the wedding in both the book and the film. I think a magical wedding is one of those things that Rowling kind of throws in there that I didn't really think about that much, but sounds awesome.
Yeah, it sounds like so much fun.
And I do think it's very funny that Harry doesn't know how to compare it to a Muggle wedding because he's never been to one before. So
poor Harry, he's had no fun.
I know. And then
that
of course,
a good scene.
It is. I like it.
Kind of ends on a sour note.
It's one of the very chilling lines in the book is, which they kind of use in the movie, but it's when Kingsley Shacklebolt's Patronus comes in to warn them, which they don't really do as a Patronus in the movie. In the book, it's literally his Patronus, which is a lynx, kind of just floats in and lands in the middle of the dance floor, and what they say is, the ministry has fallen, Scrimgeour is dead, they are coming. Is all it says, and it's the end of a chapter, and it is every time. In fact, just saying it, I got a little ooh, but in the movie, it's just a floating cloud, which you don't really know. It's one of those things that you're like, well, wait, what is that? How can they do that? But
it definitely makes you pause.
Yeah, it's strange, but they I do that, but that line, and again, I think they amend it because I don't think they say Scrimgeour's name in any of the movies. I haven't noticed it anyway. Maybe they do, and I just wasn't paying enough attention. But it's something similar. But I love that line, or those lines in the movie. Yeah, Ministry has fallen, Scrimgeour is dead. They are coming. and that's it. And then it's chaos, and people are disapparating away because the protective enchantments have broken, and Death Eaters are coming, and Lupin and Tonks are putting up shields to defend everyone, and Hermione and Harry are together, and they have to find Ron, and they just grab his hand, and then poof, and they're gone because they need to get Harry out of there. Also in the book, Harry takes Polyjuice Potion, so he doesn't look like himself, so that most people at the wedding don't know he's there for security reasons. They don't do that in the film. Again, these are the types of changes that I'm like, yeah, okay, I get it. It was a little stranger when they get to Godric's Hollow later and they don't use the Polyjuice Potion with like they do in the book. But
that's acknowledged by Hermione too.
It is, but it does seem weird that it's just like, oh, Harry Potter is just wandering around a cemetery. Like I feel like that's dangerous.
On Christmas. No one's questioning it. It's just his time. He's like, and he justifies it. He's like, no, I'm not gonna hide. This is where I was born. It's like, Harry, maybe that's why. But
Danya says that he says the minister is dead in the movie. So again, yeah, I don't think they ever name Scrimgeour in the movie, which is just an odd choice. It doesn't seem like it would have cost them. Maybe they didn't know how to pronounce it either. I've said it like 4 different ways so far in this video. So
and when they get to Grimmauld Place, it's a shorter stay. Where they're there much longer.
Well, they don't get there.
Book.
Yeah. That's where they plan all the ministry stuff.
Yeah.
And they don't ever mention in the movie, I don't think, that Grimmauld Place is Harry's now. Sirius left it to him in his will, including Kreacher. Kreacher is now a servant of Harry.
Wasn't that mentioned at the beginning of this? It was mentioned in one of the other films, but not this one necessarily. But Brian kind of mentioned
Bill is older than Charlie. Bill is the oldest one.
Yep.
Dee asked if Bill was older than Charlie. It goes Bill, Charlie, Percy, the twins, Ron, Ginny. Whose name is Ginevra. I always it's one of those things that my mind always. Well, it's not. It's Ginevra. But I always read it as Ginevra, but it's actually Ginevra.
I swear in one of the audio versions I've heard Ginevra, but maybe they never say it and I've just read it that way. Now I can't remember.
I mean, it's possible that's how it's pronounced, but it's spelled Ginevra. Ginevra. Yeah, but I always I'm gonna
think about it.
I know. They only ever say it once or twice in the books, I think, and
it's in the younger books too, one of the earlier ones. Anyway, being at Grimmauld Place, they're there much longer, and it really becomes their home. It kind of starts off as somewhere that Harry also doesn't want to be because Sirius never wanted to be there, and it becomes cozy. And Kreacher, of course, just hates all of them at the beginning, and grows to really love Harry after a while in the book. And I thought it was really sweet, and the way they end things with Kreacher kind of broke my heart in the book. In the book, in case you're not familiar, they're going to the ministry, and he's like, okay, I'll have a steak and kidney pie waiting for you, Kreacher says, and then they go, and it ends with a Death Eater basically on their front step.
Yeah,
so
Yaxley
kind of Yaxley, right?
Yaxley grabs onto them as they're apparating to Grimmauld Place, and they take him inside of the Fidelius charm, which again they never talk about that charm in the movie, but because he's inside of it now, he can see it, and he loosens his grip a little bit. Hermione does a Jenks to get him off, and then they take off and go into the woods. But because now he can get in, he can tell the other Death Eaters. And then now they can't go back there, and they're afraid to even summon Kreacher in case one of them can grab onto him and come with them. That doesn't seem super likely, but that's why they don't. I feel like elf magic. I feel like if they said, Kreacher, don't bring anyone with you, I feel like that's part of the elf's magic.
Yeah.
That he could do that. But that's, minor thing. And that's the book. They don't address that in the movie. Yeah, the Kreacher gets a whole redemption story in the book that is very sweet. It's this whole story about how Regulus, Sirius's brother, finds out about he starts to get cold feet about what Voldemort's doing, finds out about the Horcruxes, gets the Horcrux out of the cave, the one that Dumbledore and Harry got, or tried to get, and replaces it with the fake one with the note in it. and he does it by drinking the potion himself and
Mm-hmm.
ordering Creature to go back home, basically sacrificing himself and telling
Switch
Creature to
out the
destroy the
lockets. Yep.
locket. Yeah. And Creature can't destroy the locket, of course, because they're not easy to destroy. But we get that whole story, and then they give Creature the fake locket, and that's kind of when he decides, like, oh, okay, you guys are pretty cool. And he becomes like a whole new elf. Even his
Oh,
ear
he's
hair
so
is all
sweet.
white and fluffy.
He like wears
Um,
a brand new pillowcase and it's all
mhm.
clean and oh, it's so cute.
So
But he's
yeah,
okay in the end.
we don't get any of that, which is, yeah, he actually comes back in the Battle of Hogwarts and fights for
Hmm. He's
his
in the
master
kitchens.
Regulus. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, we don't get any of that. Um, the thing, honestly, I think one of the things that annoyed me most that they left out of this movie, which is a fun, I don't want to say fun detail, but a cool detail of the books. At a certain, right after the Death Eaters take over the Ministry, they put they put a jinx on the name Voldemort. So
Hmm.
anytime anyone says Voldemort, any protection enchantments around you break, and you can be located immediately. So this is how, when they're in the diner right after they leave the wedding, that's how the Death Eaters find them, even though they're in the Muggle world. I forget where they go in the movie. They do say it. In the book, it's Tottenham Court Road, but it's somewhere else. But again, like just some real busy Muggle area, and
Hmm.
the two Death Eaters walk in. And in the movie, they never say how they found them. They just do, I guess. But at the end, that's also how the Snatchers get them. They don't just apparate into the forest and have snatchers standing in front of them, which
Hmm.
makes not a lot of sense. What
Yeah.
makes even less sense, and this is something even my kids noticed watching it, is why don't they fight them? Because they don't. They just turn and
They
run.
just
And I'm like,
run.
you have wands. You're wizards. Like, what are you doing? But in the book, what happens is because they slip and say the name Voldemort. They do find out, actually, when Ron leaves and comes back, he tells
He
them
points
that
that
the name
out.
is
Yeah.
jinxed. When they're in 12 Grimmauld Place, they say it all the time, but because of the Fidelius charm, the Death Eaters can't get
Can't
in. They
hear
just
it.
all they all just keep coming to the square outside because they know someone there
Hmm.
said it, but they can't find them. But in the forest later, Harry slips and says the name, and immediately they hear apparating outside and are told, come out. We will use killing curses on
Hmm.
everyone. And then they get a hold of, I think, Hermione, and of course the others to give up.
And like you said,
Um,
that's never done in the movie. And you were right about Jenny's name, Amanda. Um, Said what the Italian version of it is, which is Ginevra. So you were
Ginevra.
right.
Oh, nice. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
one of those
you're right.
things I just recently noticed, and I was like, oh, that is. I've been reading it as Generva for years, and
I
but they
think
call her.
everyone has.
I mean, they call her Ginny 99% of the time, so it doesn't really come up that much.
But
Um,
what you were talking about, Brian, is a really good segue just into the end of the movie in general.
mhm.
Like they don't run from the snatchers. They're just like, oh, there's too many. I guess we'll just wait. So Hermione kind of
Yeah,
jinxes Harry's face to make him look unrecognizable, which is she just has all of these spur of the moment, like under
yeah.
pressure, brilliant ideas.
Oh yeah.
Even,
which is
telling
which is why
Bellatrix
she
the
would be
wand.
really good at fighting off the Snatchers. Like,
I know, you'd
it
think so.
just,
And
yeah.
she does try to like, you know, I guess stun a few of them. But
I
even,
like a
telling
stun.
Bellatrix, yeah, look, I'm stunning them. It's so
Mhm.
good. That's no swish and flick. That's not good. Anyway, just telling Bellatrix under, being tortured that the sword is a fake. Those
Mhm.
kind of ideas that she does is really well done. But so much of that last part is just not by the book, which I know, why am I
Well, it
surprised?
is
But
it is kind of by the book, except that they don't. There's none of the setup from the book is in there, so there's just a lot of stuff that happens.
well, the part with
Like the
Wormtail.
mirror. Yeah, Wormtail. Wormtail is different because they never set up in the book. Wormtail um, Wormtail hesitates when
And then he
he's
dies.
choking Harry, and because the reason he hesitates is because Harry spared his life all the way back in the Prisoner of Azkaban.
Mm-hmm.
And Dumbledore tells him, you might find that a servant of Voldemort owing you their life will come in handy someday. Here it is, which you knew was coming back, of course. And he does. He hesitates, and because he's got that glowing silver hand that Voldemort gave him, it is apparently enchanted so that if Wormtail doesn't follow Voldemort's will exactly, it will turn on him. And as soon as he hesitates, the hand turns on him and chokes him to death with his own hand. But they can't use that in the movie because they never set up that it was important that Harry spared his life, and it wouldn't have made any sense if all of a sudden his hand turned on him. It barely makes sense in the book, honestly. But
you just get that little explanation.
But they do use the mirror, which I don't think. Did we ever see Harry in the films getting the mirror? In the book, Sirius gives him a full mirror, not just a shard of it. And Sirius has the other one, and it's a way of communicating, which Harry never uses to communicate with Sirius, which is makes me kind of think that J.K. Rowling forgot about it for a few books. But in the beginning of the 7th book, as he's kind of packing up his rucksack and cleaning out his chest, which they make a point of saying that he's never really cleaned out the chest. He just skims off the top layer and adds new stuff every year. He cuts his hand open. Mm-hmm. He cuts his hand open because he finds it broken. So he takes, and when he pulls out the biggest shard and he's looking at it, he thinks he sees a bright blue eye, just like Albus Dumbledore's eye.
There is a scene that he does find it. Like at the beginning of one of the movies, there is a scene where he looks and he does see an eye. So there is like a segue into that, like later, like there is a mention of it, but I don't know if it was that movie.
I don't. Yeah, well, because it's that book is when he finds it, but he's had it since I think
like
the 4th one or
5th.
something. Yeah, 5th, something like that. He's had it for a while, but
maybe it is the 4th.
But he thinks he sees Dumbledore's eye, so of course he's like, well, I better hang on to this. So he does, and then he kind of finds it as he's rifling through the items he still has on him in the Malfoy's basement, and sees the eye again and says, help us, and like he does in the movie, except in the movie, I don't think they ever set up. Now we find out, we will find out in the next movie whose eye it actually is. It is not Albus Dumbledore's, unfortunately, but it is as close as you can get, I guess. But Dee would like us to discuss when Harry finds the sword of Gryffindor, which, of course, is another scene that we will find out much more about in the next movie when they see the doe, the doe Patronus that leads them there. This was another funny thing, which actually is like the book. Harry does dive into this pond, still wearing the Horcrux.
It's a very accurate scene to the book. It's very true to the book for the most part.
And it is funny because my daughter turned at one point and said, "Why is he wearing that in the pond?" And I'm like, "I know, right?" I don't think they use the line in the movie. I don't remember offhand. But I didn't pay 100% attention to this movie, obviously. But in the book, one of the first things Ron says when he pulls him out, which of course is when Ron returns to them, is he says, "Why on earth would you wear this in there?" And,
which is what we're all wondering.
Exactly. Why would you do that? Even Ron's smarter than you now, Harry.
I know. But like Ron's also like been in a warm bed, and he's also like not wearing the necklace for a while,
eating and stuff. I thought that
was well done as far as it translating from the book to the film. That was really well done. It was I thought that Ron he'd been doing some like A-level acting during that like part of the movie.
I think I like Rupert Grint as Ron, like through this whole series. I think when the kids were younger, I thought he was the best of the younger ones too. And I think he really grew into the character more so, I think, than Daniel Radcliffe did as Harry. I mean, I think he's fine as Harry. I don't have any real problem with him, but I think in some cases the direction let him down a little bit. I think they were telling him to do things that were a little unusual for the character, more so than him deciding to do any of it.
I was reading about Rupert Grint, and he said that after the films, for a long time, he was struggling kind of finding where he began and Ron ended. Like he became,
Yeah.
because he filmed all those movies during his formative years. It's just that was his entire childhood. And
well, I'm sure everywhere he
just
goes, people
became
yell Ron at him because they don't know.
He
his
actually
real
said
name.
he either gets confused for Ron or Ed Sheeran. That's what he said.
Yeah, I
don't
could
know.
see
I
that.
said, yeah, I know. I can kind of too. But yeah, I mean, I can definitely see that happening where like you get so absorbed in your character because you spend 10 years filming movies being that character nonstop. That would definitely become an issue after a while. But his acting was really well, it worked really well, and especially when he came back and explained the whole bright light thing, to which Harry then teased him afterwards. That was really well done. And that scene,
Well, and
that's
D
good.
asked, who else has a doe as the Patronus besides Harry's mother, but we don't know that yet. We don't even know that
Can't
that's
tell
Harry's
you.
mot's Patronus yet. Yeah, we
Yeah,
will talk.
can't give away secrets.
I imagine a good portion of the next video we'll be talking about the the two characters that are most revealed. Well, one of them I guess we can talk about a little bit now is Albus Dumbledore, because we start to see a lot of it in this movie. It's set up. Rita Skeeter writes her book, The Life and Lies of Albus Dumbledore, which is clickbait before clickbait got big, I guess. And
it's a good read in the book too. It's like very juicy.
They have like some like full chapters of it in the book. Like there's some pretty big sections of it, including a letter from Dumbledore to Gellert Grindelwald, because we find out, of course, that they were good friends for one summer when they were, I don't remember exactly. Oh yeah, I do. It was like 16, 17, because they were right around the same age that the kids are now, and where Albus is basically telling him, like, yeah, I see your point. I could see why wizards should be in charge. And as long as we do it for the greater good, which, of course, for the greater good became Grindelwald's slogan. Yeah. So it was carved over the entrance to Nurmengard, I believe. Something is that the name of his prison that he set up. Then
you had Ms. Bagshot spilling the tea, being like, yeah, something happened at the funeral and someone's nose got broken and
I mean, it's Albus's brother Aberforth, who is in, it is mentioned all throughout that part of the book, even though he's not really mentioned in the movie. We will find out a little more about him in the next movie as well. I don't even want to mention who the other big character we'll talk about next, because if for some reason, I can't imagine that many people that don't know how this ends, but just in case,
we're
I
like
don't
trying
really
to keep
want to
it all
talk about
secret.
it. Yeah.
When the book's been out forever.
But we'll talk a lot more about Dumbledore and his, because this is where Harry really starts to get frustrated with. This is Donia says that Albus was in love with Grindelwald, which might be true. I mean, J.K. Rowling has said many times that Albus Dumbledore was homosexual, so that could very well be true. So, and he apparently looked like young Johnny Depp. So, I mean, why not?
Who wouldn't be, right?
Yeah. But and I imagine when the next Fantastic Beasts comes out, we'll have a lot more of this story to talk about, because it does have Grindelwald in it. So, and Nicholas Flamel is in it, and I mean, it's going to tie fairly heavily. One thing that the Binge Mode podcast brought up, actually they were talking about Beauxbaton, the school. That it was at least partially funded by Nicholas Flamel. So there's a thought that maybe the next movie we might get to see Beauxbaton. Which would be awesome. So, yeah, but yeah, so we will definitely. Oh no, D has to start work. That stinks. This is kind of work for me, so sorry.
I know.
About that, I guess.
Thanks for joining us, D.
But yeah, but this is really where Harry starts to get frustrated with Dumbledore. He starts to find out not only that he knows nothing about Dumbledore's personal life, which, okay, I could see why a 150-year-old man isn't telling a teenager all about his personal life. Oh, Harley said the next Fantastic Beasts is supposed to be set in Paris. So yeah, I don't.
Does it come out in November?
I believe it's November. Yeah. I will look as we're talking, but he finds out also that Dumbledore didn't really tell him a ton about this stuff. He kind of set him up to like hunt down these Horcruxes, most of which he doesn't know what they are. He has ideas, but he thinks that one is the Hufflepuff's cup, which we are introduced to in the sixth book. I don't,
Mm-hmm.
not in the movies yet, but it turns out he's right, of course, because it's Dumbledore. He thinks one might be something of either Gryffindor or Ravenclaws. Yeah, November 16th it comes out.
Okay.
Also directed by David Yates, the same guy that did the movie we're talking about now, the last couple Harry Potter movies, who I'm not a huge fan of. I think part of the reason the last part of this movie was so confusing is the direction is ridiculously bad. This where they slow down and speed up scenes and they undercrank and overcrank like crazy, and it makes no sense. It kills the pace of it. But that's much more film nerdy than I want to get on here. Um, but the he finds out that Dumbledore has hidden a lot of stuff for him, stuff that
Mm-hmm.
seems like it would be important, including the Deathly Hallows, who Dumbledore left all these clues about the Deathly Hallows, including the book where with this children's story that is about it, which I kind of love, by the way. And I actually do. That is one part of this movie I will give the director or the art director at least a lot of credit when they tell the story of the three brothers.
Yeah.
I love the way that looks.
Holly
It
said
looks
the same thing.
so cool.
Yeah, Holly said
And
the
you can,
animated story of that is so good.
yeah, I love it. I love the way they get into it, like where it pans into the water and then comes back up. I think that is fantastic. And I kind of wish the
Mm-hmm.
whole movie took chances like that.
It
But
was so good.
you can see the Tales of Beetle the Bard. This is the only part really that kind of sticks out in the theme park. There's in Diagon Alley, there's a show, Tales of Beetle the Bard, where one of the tales that they tell is the story of the three brothers, and they have puppets that look very much like the animated characters. And they look pretty bad. Bad A, I guess I shouldn't swear on here. Um, but um, but anyway, I was saying, but this is the book where Harry really starts to get frustrated with Dumbledore, and partially
Mm-hmm.
because Hermione and especially Ron are getting very frustrated with Harry because they
They
say
think he
to
knows
him,
more, and he
"Yeah," and
doesn't.
he should, but he doesn't because he feels like Dumbledore left a lot out. There's also kind of a real big thing that Dumbledore didn't tell Harry about. Now, this one has a little bit more of a reason, but we won't find that out until the next
Mm-hmm.
movie. The next,
Way
I will say
later.
the the reveals at the end of the book anyway is mind-boggling. Like
Yeah.
it is one of there are some things in it that really like turn a lot of parts of the rest of this series on their head. Um,
Mm-hmm.
all I was going to say some in a good way, but I think it's all in a good way. It at least brings up. I mean, Dumbledore is is probably my favorite character in the book. At least close to like one other one that we haven't mentioned. For ridiculous reasons. Well, I guess it's Snape, um, partially because I still don't particularly like Snape as a person, which we'll talk much more about next time. Same with Dumbledore. Like he definitely used people. To
Mm-hmm.
the end, but I think those flaws are what make them amazing characters in the books. Like, I mean, they have found ways to use their personality flaws for the greater good, I guess
I
you
knew
could
you were gonna
say.
say it. I was just
Yeah,
waiting.
and I mean, of course, Harry and Ron and Hermione are awesome, but they're growing, like they're learning all of this stuff, and it's fun to
Mm-hmm.
watch them learn. But some of the really developed characters in these books are amazing. They are so
Mm-hmm.
good, and I think finding this stuff out about Dumbledore just enhances his character. Finding out that yeah, he was kind of a jerk apparently when he was a teenager, just like Harry's dad was. We found that out. Like
Yep.
kids are jerks sometimes, especially when
Yeah.
when they think they're smarter than everyone. And in Dumbledore's case, he was and still is smarter than everyone, and had to
Yeah.
learn to tone it down because he was not to be trusted in power. We find out. So
You know,
yeah.
and Danya says there's so much to process at the end of the book. It's one of the reasons I feel I have this book on as an audiobook, and that's why I bought it as an audiobook, because I feel like I can listen or read it over and over because there's always so much to learn and process. There's so
Hmm.
much information, and I feel like every time I do read it or listen to it, I learn something new that I didn't know before. So
Yeah.
even though the movie isn't my favorite, the book definitely is one of my favorites
And
for that reason.
like I said, the book has grown on me. The parts where they're in the woods are kind of maddening. They're supposed to be. You're supposed to feel the frustration that they're feeling.
And the impatience. Yep.
So and I understand that. It still makes me frustrated and impatient. So I do kind of speed read those portions when I'm going through the second time. You know, but that's fine. That's why we reread these, is you get to read the parts you really like and skip the parts that maybe you don't. I skip the story of Hagrid meeting the giants in Order of the Phoenix every single time I read it now. It's fine.
There's just some parts that you're like, snooze fest. Yeah. No, I do that too.
And we will be back in about 12 days on August 15th. That's a Wednesday. We're going to shoot for. So
in the meantime,
to discuss all of these ends. Yeah.
Yeah, if you need the Harry Potter fix, I will have my vlog out next week. And then in the next few weeks, I will have some food comparisons from my time at the Wizarding World of Harry Potter. And then after that, Brian will be there.
I will have some more. I know one of the things I want to do is try fire whiskey. I've never tried it before. That could go. I think it's supposed to be cinnamon flavored, which is not my favorite, so that could get real interesting. I'm going to do a tour of. I like cinnamon, but I don't like cinnamon flavored alcohols.
It's for work, Brian. Make it happen.
Well, I'm going to, but you know, I'm just going to film myself doing it. So, John asked what time on that Wednesday. Probably either 11 or noon Eastern.
Yeah.
We will let you know on Facebook, hopefully like a day before, assuming one of us doesn't get sick. So.
Yeah. Also, a few of you have mentioned that we did not upload Order of the Phoenix, our live stream. So I will do that either today or tomorrow on our YouTube page.
I believe that's the one where my sound wasn't working for the first couple minutes, so we might have to cut a little bit of that. But I think that might be the way I didn't. But and Harley will be at Disney for the next one.
Have a great time.
So, thank you all very much for watching. We really appreciate it. One more to go.
Yeah. Thanks so much. Bye, guys.